Welcome to this episode. Subscribe as soon as possible. Chapter 8. The Glimmer at the Bottom of the Well. Lu Chen's fingertips caressed the cracks on the glazed surface of the camel figurine. The texture was astonishingly similar to the patterns his father had when repairing the Ru Kill in his memory. King Luan held a cold light flashlight. As the beam swept across the two humps of the tang tri-colored camel, the glaze suddenly rippled. The patterns on the cargo bags carried by the camel rearranged themselves and projected a series of coordinates onto the brick wall, the ancient serial numbers of the underground drainage system of the Forbidden City. 30.5N, 116.3E. King Luan read out the numbers on his father's note, and her voice echoed slightly in the stuffy cultural relic restoration room. Lu Chen noticed that the birthmark on her wrist was faintly glowing under the light, like golden threads buried under the glaze layer, forming a mysterious resonance with the star sand glaze of the camel figurine. The Forbidden City at midnight was shrouded in a snow curtain. The Chiwen on the Hall of Supreme Harmony seemed to swallow the moonlight. Lu Chen followed King Luan, stepping on the snow. The crushed ice crystals under his soles made a fine crunching sound. King Luan stopped beside a copper vat on the east side of the Palace of Heavenly Purity. Half a piece of blue and white porcelain tile was exposed in the stone crevice covered by moss at the bottom of the vat, exactly the position pointed to when the glaze color of the camel figurine changed. The Zhuogongji of the Ming dynasty records that the wells in the palace are connected to the geothermal veins. King Luan squatted down and stroked the brick joints with her fingertips. Lu Chen smelled the faint star sand aroma in her hair, which was the unique energy field of the vessel family. When her birthmark touched the brick surface, the snow within a 2-meter radius suddenly melted, revealing a bronze well cover engraved with the small eye pattern of Langju. The musty smell mixed with the odor of rust rushed out from the well. Lu Chen turned on the tactical flashlight. The moment the light beam pierced the darkness, King Luan suddenly grabbed his wrist. The well wall was densely inlaid with broken porcelain from different dynasties. The white, blue, and yellow glaze surfaces flowed in the light beam, very much like the dynamic patterns when the Ru Kill porcelain washer cracked. Are these geothermal vein nodes? Lu Chen's voice trembled slightly. King Luan nodded, and the birthmark on her wrist was getting hot. The vessels of the previous 12 civilizations would leave fragments to stabilize the veins after each kill sacrifice. Her fingertips brushed over a piece of Yuan dynasty blue and white porcelain. A faint light seeped out from the cracks, like the breath of the geothermal veins. At the end of the stone steps was a square-shaped hidden room about 10 feet in size. The stone door was closed, and there were patterns and characters on the doorframe that Lu Chen couldn't understand. King Luan pressed her palm in the center of the door. The birthmark fit perfectly into the depression on the stone surface. Lu Chen heard the dull sound of gears turning, mixed with the buzzing of porcelain resonance, the same frequency as when the Ru Kill porcelain washer rotated in the display cabinet. The light leaking from the door crack was amber-colored, carrying the unique metallic smell of Sishen hematite. Lu Chen raised the bronze eyepiece, and fragments of his father's diary suddenly appeared in the mirror. On the day of the Sishen mine disaster, King Luan's mother's blood seeped into the stone door, double quotes. In the flashback of the image, he saw King Luan's profile overlapping with the Shang dynasty sacrificial girl in the mural. Be careful. King Luan suddenly pressed his shoulder and the flashlight beam swept across the ground. Only then did Lu Chen notice that star sand was embedded in the gaps between the stone bricks, a mineral used by the pre-civilization to mark dangerous areas. When they stepped over the third brick, the wall suddenly cracked, and countless tiny cracks seeped out a faint light, forming a dynamic star map. This is the geothermal vein navigation system. There was a tremor in King Luan's voice. It has the same origin as the small eye pattern of the Liangju Jade Kong. Lu Chen followed her gaze. The twinkling light spot in the center of the star map was exactly under the well of the Forbidden City, and the 12 halos surrounding it were exactly the same as the 12 star rings of the Ru Kill porcelain washer. The clear sound of porcelain hitting each other came from the depths. Lu Chen took out the broken piece of the porcelain washer from his arms. The fragment suddenly levitated and pieced together into the complete shape of the Ru Kill in the light beam. King Luan gasped. This is the projection of the Song dynasty kill sacrifice double quotes in the image. A girl wrapped in burlap threw a blood-dripping jade Kong into the kill furnace. The moment the flames rose, Lu Chen clearly saw the birthmark on her wrist, exactly the same as King Luan's. The 12th generation vessel ... double quotes. King Luan's voice trembled. This is the Yuxin legend my mother told me. Lu Chen noticed the change in her words. It was no longer the mission of the vessel, but a legend full of warmth. In the projection, the star sand bottle dropped by the girl when she turned around rolled to Lu Chen's feet. The Sogdian script on the bottle body was the same as that in his father's diary. Suddenly, the stone door vibrated, and King Luan stumbled into Lu Chen's arms. He smelled the star sand fragrance in her hair mixed with the smell of snow, melt water, and heard her rapid heartbeat, the same as the Seishan energy fluctuation frequency recorded by the Geothermal Vein Monitoring Center. When she looked up, Lu Chen found that the slowly unfurling patterns on the stone door were reflected in her pupils. These were ancient characters he had never seen before, but they were automatically translated into "flaws are doors" on his retina. In the center of the hidden room, a half-broken Shang Dynasty bronze tripod was suspended. When King Luan approached, the green rust on the tripod body peeled off automatically, revealing the densely engraved Liangju patterns on the inside. Lu Chen scanned it with the eyepiece and found that the engravings were actually the timeline of the destruction of the previous 12 civilizations. The latest one stopped at 1998, the year his father disappeared. Look at this! King Luan's fingertips brushed over the tripod leg, and under the rust, half of a star map was revealed, exactly the same as the glaze arrangement of the camel figurine. Lu Chen suddenly remembered the postcard his father sent before his death. The silhouette of the watchtower of the Forbidden City on the postmark was not a random doodle, but the coordinate mark of the geothermal vein node. The sound of bricks and stones shifting came from above. Instinctively, Lu Chen shielded King Luan behind him. The moment the strong light pierced the darkness, he saw more than a dozen black figures holding Sogdian bronze crossbow bolts. The arrowheads glowed with the unique blue light of star sand, a deadly weapon that could interfere with geothermal vein resonance. Mirror, master, vessel, long time no see. Half of a face was revealed under the hood of the leader. There was a glazed, drop-shaped scar at the left corner of his eye, exactly the killer who escaped during the attack at the Mirror Abyss. Lu Chen tightly held the bronze eyepiece and heard King Luan chanting softly behind him. It was the resonance frequency of the Liangju Jade Kong. The engraved patterns on the tripod body suddenly glowed with fluorescence, clearly reflecting the trajectory of the crossbow bolts. Flaws are doors. King Luan's voice carried a sense of vicissitudes beyond her age. She raised her hand and pressed the tripod body. The moment the birthmark coincided with the engravings, the entire hidden room began to shake. Lu Chen saw light, golden patterns appearing under the skin of her wrist, exactly the same as the cracks of the porcelain washer. The crossbow bolts suddenly stopped 3 inches away from them, and the star sand arrowheads actually started to grow in reverse and turned into powder. They're afraid we'll see the truth. When King Luan turned around, Lu Chen found that there was a faint star map-like light flowing in her pupils, a sign of the awakening of the vessel. The stone door closed with a bang behind them. In the light seeping from the tripod, Lu Chen finally saw the geothermal vein memory device repeatedly mentioned in his father's notes. Countless fragments floating in the void, each representing a moment of the symbiosis between human civilization and the geothermal veins. King Luan picked up the star sand bottle on the ground. Half a line of Liangju characters was engraved on the bottom of the bottle. When her fingertips stroked the engravings, the characters suddenly came to life and spelled out his father's handwriting in her palm. The 13th kill sacrifice doesn't need a sacrifice, but a choice. Lu Chen realized that this was not just a simple cultural relic restoration task, but a crucial choice for human civilization to break through the cycle. When they climbed out of the well, the snow had stopped. Icicles condensed on the glazed tiles of the Forbidden City, refracting thousands of cracks in the moonlight. King Luan looked at the mythical animals on the ridge of the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Their eyes were turning with the geothermal vein energy, pointing in the direction of Seishan. Lu Chen took out the broken piece of the porcelain washer. The fragment resonated with the patterns in the tripod and projected a tiny geothermal vein network in his palm. Each node was shining with a faint light, very much like the stars in King Luan's eyes. We should go to Sishin. There was a sense of relief in King Luan's voice, as if the yoke she had carried for 20 years had finally loosened. Lu Chen nodded and noticed that the birthmark on her wrist took on the shape of ice crack patterns in the moonlight, exactly the same as the 13th crack of the porcelain washer. He suddenly remembered what his father had said. True restoration is not about covering up the cracks, but making them a bridge connecting the past and the future. Snow particles hit the palace wall. When Lu Chen turned around, he saw that the glimmer leaking from the door crack was outlining the contour of a Liangju jade Kong on the snow-covered ground. King Luan's shadow was stretched long, overlapping with Yuxin in the mural. The bronze eyepiece in his hand was somehow engraved with the same patterns as the tripod body, the mark of the mirror, Master's inheritance and the beginning of the symbiosis between humanity and the geothermal veins. This episode ends here. The next episode will be even more exciting. Subscribe now.